Hey everyone, it's Mikey Chen. I've been wanting to make this video for a long time now because this topic is super interesting to me. I have always really been intrigued by haunted or just plain super creepy places. I used to actually look up all the local haunted spots near me and then drive there to take a look. I mean, I wouldn't go inside. I said I'm interested, not suicidal. But there was a time in my life where I actually lived in a haunted building, and I'll tell you about that at the end of the video. Of course, before we begin, I want to warn against watching this video alone or at night, during thunderstorms, near cemeteries, woods, in a creepy old house, or generally anywhere that is dark and creepy. And if you choose to ignore the warning, just check your closets and under the bed before we start. Here are, in my opinion, 4 of the creepiest places in the world. And I'm going to change this video up a bit, so we will be counting down from places that will make you cry out for mommy to places that if you visit, you better be wearing a diaper, and even that might not be enough to contain all the crap that will be scared out of you. Number 4, Centralia, Pennsylvania. I mentioned this before, but I hate horror movies. I can admit it, they scare me, and I don't like it. One of the scariest movies I ever seen was Silent Hill. That movie totally freaked me out, and the video game was much worse. I really don't like the concept of going somewhere and being hunted by a bunch of creepy monsters and never being able to find my way out. Well, that's what makes Centralia, Pennsylvania so creepy, is because that place is basically Silent Hill in real life. Centralia used to be a huge coal mining town, but in 1962, the coal beneath the town caught fire. Through the 1980s and 1990s, nearly all the homes, businesses, and buildings were torn down because the town is basically above a fire pit. While no lives had been lost that can be directly attributed to the mine fire, many say there are supernatural forces at work. There has been many stories of people seeing apparitions disappearing into the smoke or hearing voices telling them to leave town. Others go as far as to say Centralia is the gateway to hell. Although this place is not an official tourist site, you can actually go and explore the town. So if you really want to go visit a place that's basically right above a burning inferno with smoke and ashes flying around, then go ahead. Hope you don't run into Pyramid Head. Number 3, the LaLaurie House. I was in New Orleans a couple years ago, and I have to admit that town is creepy. With all the above ground graves, voodoo shops, and all the haunted houses. You know, I think New Orleans is the only place in the world where a ghost can actually make a house more expensive. So I heard about the story of the LaLaurie House while on a ghost tour, and this thing gave me nightmares. Apparently, in 1832, Dr. Louis LaLaurie and his wife Delphine moved into their mansion in the French Quarter and soon became renowned for their social affairs and great wealth. Delphine was considered one of the most intelligent and beautiful women in the city. Of course, this being the early 1800s, the house was attended to by dozens of slaves, and it was the neighbors who first began to suspect something was not quite right when they noticed that in the LaLaurie house, slaves seemed to come and go quite often. Maids would be replaced with no explanation, where other servants would just suddenly disappear. Then one day, a neighbor was climbing her own stairs when she heard a scream and saw Delphine chasing her personal servant, who was a little girl with a whip. She pursued the girl onto the roof of the house, and then the little girl just jumped to her death. So basically, this girl would rather die than be caught by this woman. Then finally, everything was exposed in April of 1834 when a fire broke out in the kitchen. Legend has it that the fire was set by the cook, who could no longer endure more of the madam's torture. After the blaze was put out, the firefighters discovered a horrific sight behind a secret barred door in the attic. They found more than a dozen slaves there, chained to the wall in horrible states. There were both male and female slaves. Some were strapped to operating tables. Some were confined in cages made for dogs. Human body parts were scattered everywhere, with heads and human organs placed in buckets. According to the local paper, all of the victims were naked. Some of the women had their stomachs sliced open and their insides wrapped around their waists. Some of the men had their fingernails ripped off and their eyes poked out. When this came to light, the town folks gathered outside the house ready to hang the whole LaLaurie family, but suddenly a carriage sped right out of the gates and basically got away. And the Lalaurie family was never seen again. They most likely went back to Europe to take shelter in their cousin Dracula's castle. Right after the family escaped, many people claimed to hear screams of agony coming from the empty house at night and saw apparitions of slaves walking around. Some stories even claimed that drifters who had gone into the house seeking shelter were never heard from again. What's crazy is that today the house has been renovated and restored and serves as luxury apartments. What other city do you know of that can turn a haunted building where dozens were brutally murdered by the evil versions of the Addams family into luxury apartments? I mean, seriously, luxury apartments? You can't pay me to live in that place. I'll go live in a drug den in the worst part of town and I think my survival rate will still be better. Number 2, the Island of the Dolls. This place is the combination of 3 terrifying factors: little kids, creepy island, and dolls. The Island of the Dolls is located in the canals south of Mexico City, and this place is covered with dolls. And not Barbies or Cabbage Patch Kids. We're talking about super creepy looking, mostly mutilated dolls with eyes that seem to follow you everywhere. I mean, take a look at these things, and this is in daylight. Can you imagine getting up in the middle of the night, hear a voice, go outside and look around and see this? And as we continue to peel the layers of this super creepy onion, it just keeps getting more and more horrifying. The reason why all these mutilated descendants of Chucky are here is because around 50 years ago, Don Julian Santana, who was the only person living on this island, found the body of a drowned child in the canal. He was haunted by her death, so when he saw a doll floating by in the canal soon after, he hunted in a tree to please the girl. He hoped to appease her tortured soul and protect the island from further evil. Okay, so let me get this straight. There's this creepy island where the only resident is this random guy, and one day random guy finds dead girl, and if that was me, I'm already on the next boat out of there. But this guy decides the best thing to do after all that is to take a creepy little doll he finds floating in the waters and to hang it on a tree, because somehow that will make the little girl's ghost happy and ward off evil. Tell me, how does a creepy doll hanging on a tree ward off evil? It's more like an all evil welcome sign. But it gets worse. So okay, he hung a doll up on a tree, but that wasn't enough for this guy. He continued to fish dolls and doll parts out of the canal whenever he saw them and hung each one of them on the island. First of all, how come there's so many dolls floating around this canal? That's just creepy on its own. Then this guy went completely insane. He then searched trash piles on his rare trips away from home and even traded his homegrown fruits and vegetables for, yeah, dolls. So after Don Julian did all this, he met a beautiful girl and lived happily ever after on the island. And one day he saw out of his window that the little girl's spirit was happy and could finally rest in peace. Yeah, except that could never happen because what he did was super creepy, and little girl ghosts are only happy when you die and go play with them forever like those creepy twins from The Shining. So in true horror movie fashion, in 2001, Don Julian supposedly committed suicide and, get this, drowned in the canal just like the little girl. Many people said, and I agree, that the dolls were responsible and that they were inhabited by tortured spirits and killed the man. But no, unfortunately, the creep factor is not over. Since Don Julian's death, his family members now run the island as a tourist attraction. I think if you're ever in a relationship and your significant other says to you, "Hey honey, I think for vacation this year, we should go to a super creepy ghost-infested island filled with creepy dolls and just walk around." Yeah, that would be a good time to walk away from that relationship. And number 1, Aokigahara Forest. Finally, we go to what I consider the creepiest place on earth. And of course, it has to be in Japan. You know, the land where the scariest movies were produced, and the only place in the world where once upon a time slicing your own gut open was the most honorable thing you could do. Anyway, at the foot of Japan's iconic Mount Fuji, lying sprawled amongst some of the most majestic scenery in Japan, is arguably one of the darkest places on earth. This place is known as the Aokigahara Forest, often referred to as the Sea of Trees, and more infamously known as Suicide Forest. The moment you step into the woods, it quickly becomes apparent that something is not quite right about this place. You ever see in the movies when people are walking around in a creepy place, then someone stops and says, "Hey, you hear that?" And someone else would say, "I don't hear anything." Then the first person would say, "Exactly." Yeah, that's exactly what it's like in this forest. You can't hear birds chirping, you can't hear animals running around, only deafening silence. It's almost as if the animals themselves are terrified of this place. Also, the trees here are so thick that even in high noon, it's not hard to find places completely surrounded by darkness. Which is a problem because not only does the tree cover make everything spookier, it also makes it super easy for you to get lost. Oh, and by the way, did I mention that compasses don't really work here? Many hikers, and I have no idea why anyone would come here just to take a hike, but many hikers that ventured into this forest, even experienced ones, claim that it's super easy to get lost, and it's not uncommon to hear stories of hikers just traveling in circles. Okay, so far we got a silent and dark forest where compasses don't work, it's super easy to get lost, and not even animals dare to live here. I mean, that's already enough to make most people not want to come anywhere near this place, but that's just a tiny bit of icing on this nightmare-inducing Japanese horror cake. The reason why Aokigahara is called Suicide Forest is because more than 500 people have taken their own lives in this place since the 1950s, and the numbers are only going up. In 2003 alone, there were 105 confirmed suicides. In 2010, police records show that 247 people attempted to commit suicide in the forest, but only 54 of them succeeded. The situation is so bad, local authorities have put up suicide prevention signs at the entrance to the forest. Some of these signs include "Your life is something precious that was given to you by your parents. Think about your parents, siblings, and children once more. Do not be troubled alone." So all that should have definitely solidified this place as the creepiest place on earth, but let's just add one more bit of horrifying information. Because this forest is so massive and hard to navigate, officials believe there are many bodies in these woods that are still not found. So you could literally wander around and run into someone hanging from a tree. You know, I was thinking about super spooky movies like The Ring and The Grudge, and I think I came up with a solution. Maybe we give creepy children ghosts too much credit. I mean, yeah, they're scary looking, but how well can they actually fight? So let's say the next time the scary girl from The Ring starts crawling through your TV where a little Chucky doll is running towards you with a knife, instead of freaking out and trying to run away, go right up to them and just give them a nice kick. I honestly think we have to start fighting back, people. I bet if we all fought back, there will be a whole lot less hauntings in the world. Anyway, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I did stay for a long period of time in a place that was haunted. The college that I went to, Truman State University in Missouri, had 3 dormitories that were haunted, and I lived in 2 of them. One of these dorms was so haunted, an exorcism had to be done in one of the dorm rooms. And I remember this one time, it was 2 a.m. and I was on rounds because I was a RA. So I was walking down the hall and I heard footsteps above me, which is pretty much impossible because each floor had carpeting. But I was able to hear the footsteps clearly, and they were heavy footsteps. But the creepy thing was the footsteps matched mine perfectly. And okay, before you say anything, this was no echo from my own footstep. I'm not going crazy. I heard footsteps above me that matched every step I took. So each time I took a step, I heard someone above me take a step. Then I got a little freaked out because it's 2 o'clock in the morning. Then I started walking faster, and then the footsteps started following me faster. And then I just started running down the hall, and the footsteps above me did the same. So then I just ran into the dorm lobby and just stayed there. Because at that point, if you went into your room alone, you're gonna die. Like I said, every floor was carpeted. The footsteps above me was super loud, like a monster, like Bigfoot was walking above me. But anyway, taking my own advice, if this ever happens again, it's fight on. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. See you later.